Well, here we are again after 27 rounds and the grueling test of a final series. Our grand final has been decided. And despite having won the last 3 premierships, the Penrith Panthers aren't going to want to let this opportunity to get revenge for their 2020 grand final loss slip by. It may seem bizarre, but that grand final loss very much still plays on the minds of these Panthers. They still, to this day, use it as motivation. At last year's Panthers awards ceremony, head coach Ivan Cleary happened to mention that grand final loss. Now, in the context of them having won the following 3 premierships, there was a bit of light-hearted laughter from the audience, to which Ivan rather sternly said,
"Why is it funny? There's nothing funny about losing. Don't like losing here."
That's how far this club have come. Before the 2019 Roosters, no club in the salary cap era had managed to find the hunger that you need to go back to back. Now we have a club who are 1 game away from going 4 in a row. A club who are literally never satisfied, who are always hungry for more success. Here's why the Penrith Panthers can win this year's NRL Grand Final. When talking about the Storm, I went in depth into their spine, talking about how they use quick interchanges of passing to find gaps through the middle and put points on the board. What makes this grand final so intriguing is that I see that middle part of the field as the Panthers' greatest strength. While there are brilliant positional matchups across the whole field, an area that'll have a massive impact on this game is whether Leota, Fisher-Harris and Yeo can stop Harry Grant from getting any momentum, and whether the likes of Liam Martin, Luke Garner and potentially Scott Sorensen can shut down Hughes and Munster. If the Panthers pack are able to physically dominate, then they force the Storm into an awkward position. They'll make them start spreading the ball out wide looking for opportunities, which is not really the way sides like to play. And dominating is something that this Penrith pack is used to doing. Last week against the Sharks, they averaged 10.5 more meters per set than Cronulla. Even conservatively, that's the equivalent of having an extra tackle per set in the preliminary final. You're essentially playing 6 tackle football against 7 tackle football, and of course you can't win that. And look, for all of you commenting, "But Leaguie, the Storm beat the Panthers twice this year, including once without Nelson." I hear you, I do, but to me it doesn't make sense to try and use those games to predict what's going to happen on Sunday. Because this is a grand final. Think back to 2022 when the grand final was Panthers versus Eels. Parramatta had beaten Penrith twice that year as well, and more to the point, the Eels forward pack had dominated the Panthers forward pack on both occasions. But come grand final night, with the Panthers forwards dialed in, it wasn't even a contest. Penrith led 28-0. Now I completely realise that the 2024 Storm are an entirely different prospect to the 2022 Eels. The point I'm making is that once the ball kicks off in the grand final, everything else goes out the window. None of the history of who's dominated who matters. And you'd best believe that if the Melbourne forwards go into this game calmed by the fact that they've done the job twice before, they're in for a rude awakening. And as if these Panthers needed any more motivation, there's the players they're farewelling at the end of this year. Every season we've seen the Panthers lose high quality players, the likes of Viliami Kikau, Matt Burton, Stephen Crichton, and even some players who weren't poached by the Bulldogs. But I reckon this year is as big a departure list as they have ever had. Headlined by James Fisher-Harris, the front rower debuted way back in 2016, and 202 games later he has never played for any other club. He's one of the older heads in this relatively young Panthers side, having been there through the good times and the bad. And as their alpha, the Panthers forwards will look to especially lift for him. Then you've got Jarome Luai, a player who rugby league fans do not give enough credit to for this period of Panthers' success. I've said for such a long time that he is an absolutely quality player in his own right. He isn't simply a beneficiary of the halfback that he plays alongside. And over the years there have been so many people who have argued with me against that point, saying that Luai is nothing without Cleary. But I think this year especially, both in Origin and in big parts of the season with the Panthers, he has definitely proven that wrong. I mean look, regardless, the people who doubt him will continue to doubt him because they love to hate him. That's literally all it is. But if he does manage to win 4 consecutive premierships as a 5'8", their position only becomes more ridiculous to argue. And then lastly, you've got Senia Taruva, a player who, while he doesn't play as big a role as JFH or Jarome Luai, he has done his job for Penrith. 29 tries in 51 appearances is a pretty good strike rate, and headed to the West Tigers, who respectfully are not a club who are going to be challenging for premierships anytime soon, he's going to be looking for the performance of his life in his last game for the Panthers. On that note, this is the 17 that the Panthers will be rolling out on Sunday night. In my Storm video, I mentioned the centres, and I actually think that that's a focus area for the Panthers as well. Isaac Tungo hasn't had the best season, and I do think that the Storm will set up to isolate him in defence and force him to make tough defensive decisions. But he is a centre who has won 2 premierships already, so I'm not going to doubt his ability to stand up on this stage. Then the other centre is Paul Alamotti, a player who I think is in really good form at the moment. But Tungo's strength is Alamotti's weakness, and that's experience. This time 12 months ago, Alamotti was a player who struggled for first grade at the lowly Canterbury Bulldogs. Fast forward, and all of a sudden he's found himself here. He has absolutely got the tools to compete at this level though, and to be fair to him, he has been great so far in this final series. The rest of this side is a little hard to speak about because there simply aren't chinks in the armour. Their bench is a step down in quality from the starting side, but I'd argue that that's the same for the Storm. And the likes of Lindsay Smith and Liam Henry have been really good this season despite not having the same status and reputation as other interchange forwards in the NRL. But for the two of them, their job is simple. Come onto the field and hold the fort until Leota and Fisher-Harris are able to come back on. Sure, that's easier said than done, but realistically, when was the last time we saw a Panthers player not step up to the occasion? When I did my predictions at the start of this final series, I predicted that this would be the grand final, and I predicted Panthers to lose it. I'm not as confident now about that prediction as I was before though. Penrith simply understand this time of year. They do it better than anyone else. They live for the pressure and they thrive in the pressure. Next year is going to be a lot tougher for them. A super young 5'8" in Blaze Talangi and losing their dominant forward in James Fisher-Harris. While these Panthers back themselves no matter what, they might know in the back of their heads that this is sort of the last ride. This could, theoretically, be the end of an era. And with that in mind, I've got no doubt that we're going to see the best of the Penrith Panthers come Sunday night. Personally, I find these two sides so hard to split, so I'd love to know what you guys think in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you later.